Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Hiker Sessions, where we interview thru hikers, day hikers, and everyone in between. Today, we have two special guests, and I think you will find the story of their 2022 AT thru hike very interesting, and some might even say it was very cool how they did it. They're not only two of the nicest people that I know, but also two individuals who I'm also happy to be able to call friends. They are Mike and Marla Hansen, known on the trail as Blazedog and Shows Up. Welcome to the channel, guys.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I'm sure you guys heard on the trail, and I did a lot last year on my 2024 thru hike, that saying the trail provides. Either it's not so much, it just feels a little deeper at times than trail magic or even a hitchhike. While those things are nice while you're out there, that Coke or something along the way, but I found that it's really the friendships that I made along the way were the true, what the trail provided for me. I felt that was bigger than all of it. Do you agree after you guys going through that?
Oh, yeah. It's a special place. It's a special experience. It's so much more than just the hike, right? So
it really
yeah,
is.
Totally agree.
So some quick background. I had to do some digging into my digital archive for this. So about how we met and became friends. So you started the AT in 2022. And about that time, the reality of me maybe being able to actually do it kind of started to surface here at my house. And so I started looking on Instagram for people around my age. I didn't want to follow somebody 24 doing 30, 40 miles a day. So I just somehow I found, you must have hashtagged something or something like that along the way, and I found your account, Blazedog, and I looked back, which technology is great. I messaged you on March 11th, 2022. When did you start your thru hike in 2022, Mike?
February 1st.
Okay, so you'd been out 5 weeks or so, and I saw one of your posts, and you had said something to the effect that you were just, I can't remember you, I think you were maybe just ahead of the bubble, and you kept just missing trail magic. You'd just get to a gap or something, and they'd be like, oh, somebody just had pizza here, or something like that. And I remember I typed, and I found the message I sent you. It said, hey, if you make it this far, I will do trail magic for you in the 100-mile wilderness.
And I was very excited to get that note.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was excited too. I'm like, it's probably done. So that was March 11th when I typed that to you. And I met you on July 17th on the Katahdin Ironworks Road, the locally known as the KI Road, with burger baskets.
With a cheeseburger.
Yeah, for you and your family, the two other hikers you were with. And and then we, and then my older daughter and I were fortunate enough to see both you guys at the summit of Katahdin when you finished, which was so exciting. So, so that was just, I like to think that that's a way. I mean, there's a lot of chaos out there with social media and stuff, obviously, but I think that's one of those little nuggets that was really positive that, we were able to become friends just off seeing your post, which is really cool. So let's, I've already given away that you started and finished your AT thru hike. So let's step back a little bit. Just a little bit about each of your backgrounds, how maybe you guys even got into hiking and how the thought of even doing a thru hike came to be.
Okay. Well, so spent a career in the Army, and probably about midway through my career, and I don't remember exactly how the seed got planted, but somewhere in there I got it in my head that when I retired from the Army, I wanted to thru hike the Appalachian Trail. And then the search began for somebody to hike it with me. And most people thought I was crazy or whatever, but there was one guy named Greg Torrey who started the trail with me, and he said, yeah, I'll do it. And really? Oh, and we were just beginning our friendship at that time. We met in Germany. And so, but yeah, he started the trail, walked the first 500 some miles with me, and he fell and got hurt, sadly, but that ended his hike. But Yeah, I think having a friend to start out was pretty vital, especially that early with the bad weather, the cold, and all the stuff.
And I
Yeah.
think for him, as he was finishing up his Army career, researching the AT made like getting through those last years to retirement go so much better because in his spare time, he had this exciting project to work on and to look forward to.
I planned every day of the hike, um, 3 separate times, 3 different versions before I had ever set foot on the AT. And then that my final version plan was scrapped on day 2.
So did you have it planned so much that you knew like the day you would end?
Yes, yeah, I was down to the day. It was the distances, the shelters I would stay at, the resupply points. I mean, it was ridiculous.
So how close
I
did
think
you come to that date?
Not
Not
even
even.
close. No.
The first plan, he planned to do it all by himself because originally I was just like, I'll drop you off, I'll pick you up, I'll be at our retirement home, wherever that is. And then somewhere along the way, number one, we couldn't figure out where we even wanted to have a retirement home. So, and number two, I was like, I don't think I want to miss out on this adventure. I sent him off traveling in the Army, and I didn't feel like retirement was not supposed to be about sending him off and being separated again. So, I was never as much of a hiker as Mike. I'm much more into it now than I ever was back then. But, yeah. So at some point along the way, I started researching like female RVers that were on their own, and deciding, hey, I could follow in an RV.
Yeah, and that's the real cool part of I think your hike, which just fascinated me, and I'd never thought about it in those terms before, and it was such a neat way to do it. So you've segued nice into it. Talk about like just for the viewers and listeners, like how that all worked. So your buddy goes down 500 miles in, and then what's that look like from there the rest of the way to Catan logistically for you guys? What plan did you put in motion?
Oh,
Well, we started out that way. Actually, it
Okay.
wasn't just Greg. Greg actually was living in the RV with us,
yeah.
from the beginning. But yeah, we have a 36-foot motorhome, and plan 2 or plan 3 that Mike came up with beforehand. Well, the plan was that we would park the motorhome. It's way too big to ever go to a trailhead or anything like that. We would park it at some place it fits. We tow a car behind it. I would drive him to a trailhead, south of me. He would walk.
About 3 or 4 days to the point that was closest to our home, and she'd pick me up. I'd resupply one night, drop us back off, hike another 3 or 4 days, then she'd pick us up again and drive it about 100 so miles up trail to the next spot, and then repeat.
Yep.
So basically 6 or 7 days of hiking followed by one day of moving the motorhome.
Wow, yeah, I think that was just so cool to have both of you involved with it. And I know, Marla, you got the trail name Shows Up. How did you get that trail name?
Well, I just ended up always shows up when you need me. If sometimes it was just at the regular time, but I like to surprise the guys when they weren't expecting it. If it was a super hot day, I'd follow where they were if they had phone service and try and meet them someplace with Gatorade or something.
And you ended up hiking a lot of miles, not only south to meet them, but also north back to wherever you'd parked too. How many miles I'm sure you've thought about it or talked about it. I may have even asked you before, how many miles of the AT do you think you hiked, including out and backs? Like,
I never added it up. To be honest, I never added it up. And a lot of my miles would be not AT miles. I would start at some parking lot off the AT, and, even like meeting him to do summits together. A lot of times I couldn't start on the AT because there wasn't a good spot. So I'd be at a parking lot and hike 3 or 4 miles to him, and maybe we'd spend a mile hiking and summit together. He'd move on. I'd hike back down to the parking lot. So I had a lot of non-AT miles to get to the AT.
She hiked Mount Washington with me, so she parked at the Cog Railroad parking lot or whatever, and hiked 7 or 8 miles up Mount Washington, the hard part, just to meet me at Lake of the Clouds hostel. And then we could continue with the summit from there, but that was it.
But then I circled back around.
Right.
To the
Way
parking
back
lot.
down again. So
I mean, you must have had hundreds of miles. I mean, a few
Maybe.
hundred anyway.
Yeah, I would say.
I'd say a couple hundred, 300, yeah.
Because I like to start out with them sometimes in the morning. I'd hike a mile or so and then hike back. And then I always tried to hike out to them when I was picking them up, to hike out and meet them and make sure I had like water and some snacks in case they were running low, and maybe meet them half a mile to a mile out. Well, I didn't hike ice cream out, but
No,
I might have had it in trail
ice cream.
sometimes.
She could tell you it was waiting for you. That's really neat though, because I had just one time there was a colleague that I used to work with who'd transferred to North Carolina, and I was getting close. I think it was a day or so before Uncle Johnny's, just south of Irwin, Tennessee, and he parked at a gap and hiked toward me. He had my Garmin and he could see where I was. And just seeing somebody come towards you, and he had a couple of root beers, but it was just so cool to actually see someone, I mean, obviously your husband, but just anyone that hiking towards you with goodies. That must have been really cool. Like every time, Mike. I mean, that mustn't have got old at all.
Oh, not every time, but half.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it ever got old.
No, never got old.
And I was fresh. And so I would come in and be fresh, and I would have, fresh water, and they would be like worn down, tired. And then I would always lead the way out, and they would really pick up their step because I was fresh. And so they didn't want to not keep up with me. Although sometimes they did tell me to slow down.
So my worst day on trail, we ended at the Knock, and that was my worst day on trail. Woke up, it was 12 degrees. My water froze. Had to go 3.5 miles just to get water. And it was just a miserable day. But as the day went up, it got really warm. She started at the Knock. She walked 4 miles, up to us. And by that time, it was pretty much a beautiful day. Greg and I were not having it. She was just all chipper and blah, 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 blah. And I think we walked in silence the last 4 miles. By the time we got to the Knock, then we were all in good spirits. So it certainly helped lift our spirits too.
You hike in and out of the Knock either way, north or south. It's basically a deep V. I can remember hiking north down into it, and my knees were like hurting. That was tough. So what you get back to the RV on nights that you could? What did the dinner? Was Marla? Were you always in charge of the dinner, or?
Yeah, I was pretty much always in charge of dinner. I always tried to have something, so that could be ready pretty quickly after we got back, and keep them full. And then he always did resupply there. We did, I don't think you ate like a prepackaged freeze-dried meal the entire AT that I can remember. I did all of his meals. I had bought a bunch of freeze-dried ingredients, and then I was using a recipe site, and I would make all of his meals in Ziplocs. And so he could come back and choose from what, I always tried to have a variety so he could choose what he wanted to take out the next few days.
That kept the sodium levels down, at least on the trail. I'm curious about this, Mike. You mentioned that your friend had started with you. I know I thought I had reached out to a few different people that I thought were as crazy as me about maybe going with me. And then I started to think about it like, well, what if I get hurt, or what if they get hurt? How mentally at first did that affect you, losing him as a hiking partner? Of course, you would see Marl every 3, 4, 5 days, but having someone with you that you knew, how did that kind of mentally affect you at first?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I think I was a little bit in denial at first. It was Burke's Garden where he fell, so I helped hike 3 days alone, all the way to, I can't remember the name of the town, Pearsonville or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I don't remember the name of the town.
Oh, Parisville?
Parisville, yeah.
Parisville, Virginia. Yep, I know
Virginia,
exactly
yep.
where you went. Yep.
Yeah, and I think the first day I didn't even see anybody, and no, I did see somebody at the trailhead. But yeah, so being that alone, I'm struggling to answer the question, Greg. I haven't really been 3 years now, but I know it was more like a shock at first, and then I certainly missed them. I missed them, especially I'd say weekends. Like that was hard.
Yeah, and he could make friendships on the trail, but finding someone that wanted to hike his schedule, which he took a day off every single week, was really difficult. And he didn't find anyone to hike with again until New Hampshire.
Yeah. So
it sounds like that was actually a good lead into my next question. Did you just figure, well, hike the rest of the way alone, except when, Marla comes out to meet me or whatever, and we're hiking together, or at the start of the day. Was that kind of your plan?
Yeah, yeah. I didn't actively look for anybody else to hike with. I did, flip flopping with certain other people. A couple of which I still, we follow each other on Instagram and stuff like that and chat every once in a while. But no, it was never really an option to, people don't like to take 1-0 every week, I guess.
Yeah. Well, if I did it again, I might I might take a zero more often than I did, because I think I think that's a mistake a lot of people take, especially at the beginning of the trail, is to not take a zero. So I think you having that built in to move the RV, I think that's very beneficial, honestly, just physical wise. So you did come into kind of like a little tramway. You mentioned you met up in New Hampshire. How'd that all come about? Finally meeting with some people that you paired up with.
So there were two, and they were not hiking together. They were kind of separate too. One, he was clean machining. He had been section hiking. This was his 5th year, and he wasn't planning on finishing, actually. He was just planning on doing a section, I think, another 1 or 2 years. But, and we met in Vermont. We actually met him the first time in Vermont, because a friend of mine came out and did a day hike with me, a 20-mile day hike, right? So, chatted with him all that day and met him a couple other times. Then it was in the Whites where I thought he would say no, but I invited him to say, hey, you'd be interested in, hiking with me all the way up there and staying in the RV and doing our thing. And he was excited and said yes. And I'm like, oh, cool. And then,
Wick.
yeah, Wick was the word person. And I don't remember how she kind of just joined our group. She just, I think, hiked us for the last, no, it was after Mount Washington. It was, her first day was in the Wildcats right after lights.
Yeah, we would just drop her off at a hostel. She was happy to stay at hostels, and so every time I picked him and Clean Machine up, I'd drop her off at whatever hostel she wanted to be at, and then we'd pick her up the next day.
Yeah, and she hiked the same pace with us, and yeah, it was good.
I remember I met you guys in the 100-mile wilderness. You all looked like you'd been hiking together since Springer. I'm always amazed at the kind of the bond that you make with the people, and how quickly, because you're all out there kind of doing the same thing, going through the rain, cold days together, as you mentioned. Was that something that surprised you? I know you said you asked him, and you didn't know if he was going to want to do it or not. Were you surprised at the relationships that you were able to form on the trail?
Yeah, for sure. Especially, the ones where you just meet for doing the flip flop. You meet for a night, you don't see him again for a week, then you meet him again, just talk at the shelter. You share your Instagram stuff, and then all of a sudden you're chatting on Instagram and all that other stuff. So that's what really surprised me, the short amount of time you can make a bond like that.
When your friend did go down at around the 500-mile point, did it give you pause, like, geez, can I make it? Did you ever, starting out, you were together, and did you just say, well, I'm going to make it, it's going to take me this long? Did you ever have any doubts, either when you started or after he left, that you could actually make it all the way to Katahdin?
No, actually, I don't think I did. I don't, even on my worst day, I didn't, there was nothing that said, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't know. I guess the bad days were few enough and far enough between that it never entered my mind. And I hiked about 750 miles of the Ice Age Trail as a prep for the AT. So I already kind of knew what the hard days looked like. And so I was, I guess, already mentally prepared for that. And then just.
And a good share of that alone, too.
Sure.
A good share of the Ice Age Trail alone.
Oh, yeah. Most of that was alone, like 3 days without seeing a human alone.
Yeah, that's a long distance too. I know I had up to the ATL, I'd done the 100-mile wilderness every summer, but that's, as difficult as that is, you're out there a week, and that does not prepare you for having to do laundry and resupply food. And those are the things that surprised me on the AT. You mentioned the Ice Age Trail. You did the first, what is the Ice Age Trail? 1,200 miles?
Yeah, it's about 1,100, yeah.
So that's in Wisconsin for the viewers and listeners who don't know. And so you did that in 21, which was a great prep for the AT. You did the AT northbound in 22. You went back and finished the Ice Age Trail. in 23. And then I know because I was with you, we all summited Kilimanjaro together, January of 24. So what's next on your radar? Or before you answer that, so after doing these hikes, is this something now that you're craving? What's that feel like in your day to day?
It's always in the back of my mind. I'm gonna hike. I just want to hike. I don't even know why. It seems crazy, but so so having a hike to do is always kind of important to me, whether it's a long trail or an intermediate trail or whatever. We've got friends who've reached out to us and want to do the Camino, one of the stretches of the Camino, and so that's been, on the burner for now. It's either this fall or next spring. Still not sure about that. And 2027, we committed to doing the PCT, and I don't know if I want to do the whole thing. So, probably my biggest regret on the AT is I always felt like I had to get the miles, get the miles. And so I would sit for 10 minutes on such a great view or whatever, and then push on to get the miles, get to the next pickup point, whatever, and I would like to do the next trail slower, but the PCT is 2,600 miles. You can't do that slower, right? So I don't know if I'm going to do the whole thing. I might do half just to be able to do 10 or 15 miles a day instead of having to push 20. I don't know, but then I might get into it and think, oh, no, I'm not quitting.
It's easier, people tell me. I mean, anecdotally, because I have friends that I finished the last 400 miles or so with last year, and they had done the PCT in 2022. And they did the PCT and the 18 exactly the same amount of time. So, I mean, easy is a relative term. Everyone always asks, were there any easy days on the 18? I would always say there were difficult days, and then there were less difficult days. But right. I didn't find any easy days. Were there any other learnings that you took away from the hiking the AT? And this goes for either one of you. Either that you brought back, maybe in your personal life, or if you do another trail, like you said, maybe slow down a little bit. Any other learnings you can think of off the top of your head? Either one of you, really, because you were both in it.
Got one?
Yeah, no, I mean, not really off the top of my head. I told him I might not do his food for the PCT.
Which is fair.
Fair. Wow.
I never expected that. I really didn't. So,
I really wanted him to eat healthy.
Yeah.
After being out on the AT as much as you were, Marla, have you ever thought about, well, maybe I'll just go with him and just do it together?
So I don't like sleeping as a tent, as you probably remember from Kilimanjaro. That doesn't seem to agree with me very well. That's probably my biggest drawback. And I was going to say, you listed all of our hikes, right? The same year as the AT, October of that year, we went to England and we hiked the 100-mile Cotswold Way. And on that, you hike maybe 10 to 15 miles a day. And then you stay at like a bed and breakfast or a hotel above a pub. And you never sleep in a tent and you eat in restaurants.
It felt more like a 100-mile pub crawl to me.
Yeah. But that was more my sort of a thru hike.
That was a great time.
Yeah. It was a phenomenal vacation where we happened to hike 100 miles. So, but I don't feel the call to sleep in a tent. I just, I like everything else about it except for the no bedroom, no bathroom part.
Yeah, that's rough. I know, especially in the middle of the night when it's a little chilly, having to get out of the tent. I'm not a big fan of that. What do you think? It's funny, Mike, because I think you're a little like me in the fact that even if there's something that I don't think will ever happen, I just want to be thinking about it and just plan it, even if I don't put a date on it. Like, I'd love to do the CDT next. And I don't know if it'll ever happen or not, but just, reading about it, and there's so much stuff out there. What do you think it is? You might not be able to put your finger on it, but is there anything in your background that maybe lit that fire? I know a lot of people read Bill Bryson's book or a movie. What was that flip that switched for you, you think, that even got you on the AT to begin with?
I have no idea. I really don't. I put a lot of thought into that. We've had a lot of conversations about it. I don't have any idea. I mean, I know in high school, grew up in rural Iowa and my grandparents had a farm, and I would go out there with a cooler and tent and stay out for, a week in the summer and just be up. But I wasn't hiking. I was just out there in a tent.
In the wilderness.
In the in the pasture, just basically sitting there burning wood.
Maybe it's just being outside and the challenge of it. The cliche question is, why'd you do the AT? And I think, honestly, of all the people I've talked to, most people don't know till they finished. It seems. When you were alone for those stretches, how did you deal with the alone time? Did it ever overwhelm you at times, or did you just enjoy it?
I would say it didn't overwhelm me. But what surprised me was when I finally met, and the biggest surprise was on the Ice Age Trail. I went 3 days without seeing a person. Then I just met, another day hiker, and I just became chatty Cathy. I just talked and talked and talked. I'm like, who's this person? I'm not like this. I don't talk to strangers. I don't talk to anybody. I put my head down and keep going. But I wouldn't shut up. So I guess I do crave human contact.
I think we all do in a way. When you finally got to Katahdin, and I was fortunate enough to be there and see you and Marla come up those last few steps and touch the sign. What do you still have that feeling that you can just close your eyes and remember what that felt like? For both of you, because it was a journey that, I mean, you guys did together. Honestly, what was that feeling like?
Oh, I remember it vividly. It was half joy at being done and half sorrow for being done. So, and I cried a lot. As you know, you were there. I kissed the sign, and I was like crying, and it was half joy, half sorrow. I swear if it weren't for her, I would have just turned around, pulled a Forrest Gump, and did a yo-yo.
I know, Marla, you mentioned, and I'm not bragging here. I'm just saying it just to make a point. So that when I finished this year, it was my 72nd summit of Katahdin, and I thought it would be just like, I finished the hike, and I broke down too. It was a feeling like I had never felt ever before at that sign. I think it was just a sense of completion. And I know Marla, I'd had a conversation with her the day you guys had summited, and she said she had never seen you that emotional, for something.
Yeah.
Was that, I mean, what'd you think of that? How did that hit you, his emotion at finishing, Marla?
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very rare for Mike to be that emotional, but I want to say that actually that's something that changed as he hiked the AT. Like hiking the AT, he became a more demonstrative with his emotions as the hike went on, which I would say that was definitely a big surprise for me, probably for him too.
Yeah. Could you feel that consciously, Mike? Could you feel that happening or no?
No.
Yeah.
No.
What do you think it was, Marla? What do you think it was that brought that out?
I think I'm not sure. I think just those bottom of the pyramid things at life that you're working for every day, just shelter and food, and he cried over a pizza on the AT. So it was just one of those things. It was just, yeah. And then after the AT, just to listen to an AT podcast, he about had to turn it off because he just missed it, and it would make him a little emotional, and he didn't like that.
So Clean Machine, who summited Katahdin with us, he had another 300 miles to go. So when I met him in Vermont, sorry, I can't remember. I know it was Highway 9 Vermont, basically the first road crossing. I think Bennington is the town.
Yeah.
So he rode with us in the RV back to that point, and we dropped him off, and he continued. So he finished his AT hike by going south from there, 300 miles. And that was very, very, very hard to watch him, cross the road and ascend that.
He got to keep hiking, and you had to go home.
And I had to go home.
Yeah, I would think that. I mean, how close did you come to being like, oh, I'll just do it with you?
Right. I don't.
I tested the waters probably a day or two before we dropped them off. Like, it's only 300 miles. Maybe we can just stay. No. I'm like, okay, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Well, you have to remember at that point, I don't drive the motorhome, so him staying on trail means I'm staying on trail. So.
Yeah. So that's something else I'll touch on just real quick, because I think it's another cool thing. You don't own a home, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
You have the RV, and I think that gives you so much freedom. And I follow your Instagram account, and I'm like, all right, where are they going to be this time? And I know you have family and children all over the country. So it sounds like after the AT that it kind of amped up your RV travel. Do you think if you hadn't done the AT, you'd have been going around doing as much stuff as you have?
No, it was never our intention. I mean, even when we first bought, we decided to buy an RV for the AT. We actually bought a smaller one. And it was always our intention to use it for the AT and then buy a retirement home. And as we started using it, we decided we kind of liked it. We actually upgraded to a bigger one, which is, I drove the smaller one. I don't drive the bigger one. And we just thought, well, we don't want to get rid of this. We're completely content. It's really all we need. So although we are strongly considering getting an apartment and a camper van as a change, because then, like, for the PCT, I can drive it. And that was always a concern. I mean, I say I don't drive it. I drive it once a year to make sure I can. But, with him out there hiking, if he even like twists the wrong ankle, we could be stranded because we're in a rig that I don't feel comfortable taking any distance. So we are probably this year going to switch it up and buy something I can drive, so that for future hikes, we're both able to take it anywhere we want to go.
Yeah.
And maybe even to trailheads. That would be
because our big rig, especially on the PCT, thinking of the Sierras and all the places you just can't get to with a big rig like that. Whereas, a van.
Yeah, a van, if I could camp really close to him, that would be great. And it would really cut down on miles, because I was putting hundreds and thousands of miles on the car driving to pick him up and back and take him back the next morning. And so if I could even just drive a van to a trailhead, we can both spend the night in the van, and then he goes on the next morning and I go to wherever I want to go. I think that would be a really good, we're curious to try it.
Mike doesn't mind. I'll edit this out if he does, but his Instagram's great, because not only does he take the pictures, but then he numbers and details what each picture is. And I love it. And it's one of the best ways to do it, because, people throw pictures up there and they're like, oh, what's that? I don't know what that is. Right. So I love Mike's follow on Instagram. Well, look, I kept you guys a long time. I'm excited. I hope you get back to Maine. I know we talked about doing maybe a little bit of hiking together this summer in July.
Yeah, I'm still up for that.
We'll resummit Katahdin and then head north to the Canadian border and hit a little of the IAT. And who knows, maybe, I'll be tagging along somehow in 27 or something. It's cool to dream about, but again, thanks so much for coming on the program. I really enjoyed having you guys. I do have to ask though, Triple Crown, is that part of the PCT, or is PCT just that next thing?
It's the next thing. So the CTT kind of scares me because there's grizzlies involved. So I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe if he had a friend named Bob or Sloggy who was hiking the grizzly area with him, he might consider it.
Oh,
yeah,
totally.
That's a good point. I watched you mentioned the grizzly. I watched. He was actually a guest on Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail podcast, which you guys and myself have been guests on, and they talked about he got charged by a mother bear and two cubs, grizzlies, just walking up on a ridge, and they talked about the video. So I went online and I watched the video, and yeah, that's a little different than the black bears running away from you and then the Shenandoahs. So I think having a partner would be good. I think that's maybe how I'll get to go. I'll say, well, Mike needs a partner.
Absolutely.
To do it. Well, look, again, thanks so much for coming on, and good luck. I know the Camino, maybe this year, maybe next, but I certainly look forward to getting together and doing that hike in July.
Me too. Yeah, just shoot me dates whenever you get them finalized.
I will for sure. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.